Hello, I'm Laura Furiosi, divorced mother of 3, and I'm here with my mother, Lynette Galvin, with 35 years' experience in family law. You're listening to the Divorce Course podcast. Through our candid discussions, we hope to help you through your divorce or de facto separation. We will be answering the most commonly asked questions and covering the stages and steps that you will face on your way to freedom. Do you have school-aged children? Are your kids about to enter into primary school or into high school? Well, then this episode is for you because we will be discussing everything to do with schools and divorce. Welcome, Mum.
Hello, Laura.
Now, actually, I have an auntie. You have a sister.
Yes.
And she has been a school principal.
She has been.
And a primary school teacher, and she's done the lot. And I was a primary school teacher, and
so
you were a primary school
teacher.
For
a little while.
So, well, and you're mostly a lawyer, but you decided primary school teaching, and then you realised primary school teaching was too hard.
It was my first midlife crisis. It was too hard. It really was. I'd rather have a trial, be in front of a judge than 25 kids.
25 little kids. Well, anyway, so we've all been in the teacher space, but my auntie, your sister, said, Laura, you should do an episode about this because it's an unclear space for a lot of people. So today we're going to be covering what schools can and can't do with the court. And you're going to tell us about what our listeners can and can't do when it comes to school. And we're going to cover some big issues about changing schools, choosing schools and repeating, extracurricular activities. And we're also going to give you 5 tips, the 5 main real things you need to remember when it comes to school, your kids, and potential orders or potential court or court orders and what to do.
Auntie Christine's doctor's right in it, hasn't she?
But Auntie Christy is smart, though, because she's probably come across a lot of people. And one of the other things is we've had a lot of people write in saying, help, I don't know what to do, this has happened. And one of the things which we will talk about is they're changing the kids' schools.
Okay.
You know, so that kind of stuff we really do need to touch on. But let's start with what schools can and can't do. Our listener maybe is at a primary school and their child is in grade, let's make up a random, child's in grade 2 and they're getting divorced.
Yep.
What happens with the schools?
Okay. So the first thing I recommend my clients to do is to let the school know that there's things happening at home because children do act out. And it'd be really terrible if they're sort of playing up in their class and end up with detention or worse, you know, like segregated or letters home when they're also dealing with this stuff at home. No matter how much you try to protect them, they are aware that one or other parent isn't there. So I would talk to the school teacher, maybe if they've got a pastoral care or a counsellor, let them know what's going on. And, of course, the office. Let them know if one of you's got to change contact details. If you end up with any court orders, I'd have them in the court at all times so they're on the file and, in fact, keep them up to date with the latest court orders.
Okay, so I think people always worry about that. Am I supposed to give court orders?
Yes, you must.
Okay, all right. And contact detail-wise, maybe some people listening might be a little bit embarrassed to go up to the office and say it, but as you pointed out, Mum, pretty much half of every class has got kids with separated parents, so the schools are well-versed in dealing with separated parents, whether you're amicable or not.
Yeah.
So as long as you just let the ladies or the gentleman at the office know, here's my new contact details, here's my partners. In fact, in our course, we have a letter that you can write.
We do, I remember that, yes. So in that early stage, we've got all those letters to let people know.
Okay, so the school can do that. What can't they do?
Well, they can't implement the orders, really. They can't stop a parent taking a child.
Also, when it comes to custody, it's living with. So if it's a changeover day or something, the school
even
can't
if it's not, if the other parent turns up at the school and takes the child out, there's nothing the school can do because they don't have rights that are over the parent's rights and they're not the police. All you can ask them to do is to telephone you. Immediately, if anything like that is happening. Yeah. That's all you can do. And that's why they need to be aware. And if they telephone you and the other person's already taken the child with them, then at least you're very quickly on the front foot. You can get an application into the court if you have to, or you can bring their lawyers or, find out what's going on and stop. It will ultimately take either an order of the court or the police or someone to talk sense to this person to get the children back. But the sooner you start, the better. And sometimes you can turn up in time to stop it happening.
Right.
Try not to fight in front of the child.
Yeah, that would be terrible to have a big fight at the school.
I do remember one awful case where apparently there was a parent on each arm, literally, of a child. So, and that boy, did the judge have a lot to say to both of them. So it's got to be civil.
I think that child's therapist is going to have a lot to say when it's older. But I understand, it's particularly right at the beginning of separation, maybe when everything's unclear. It can be really hard, I guess, for parents, and everyone's emotional. But I think, again, we've got to remember also the children have friends, and older kids will be mortified if their parents are behaving like crazies at the gate. So you got to keep all of that in mind.
Yeah, and walk away if you have to.
But
and deal with it later, not in front of the child. Keep it all calm.
Yeah, unless it's unsafe, then call the police.
It's really unsafe. Yeah. Otherwise, you say, "Don't worry, darling. I'll contact you later," or Daddy
this
will
is
see
general
you tomorrow.
advice only. Of course.
That's normally okay. If there's a real risk, then you need to hightail it to the court.
Okay.
Or to your lawyer and get some orders.
All right. So basically, the school can change details. They can provide counselling, but they can't really enforce orders. They can't
get between the
They
parents.
can't stop a parent from taking a child from the school, and they can't really get involved because they're not the police and they're not court.
And they're not the parent.
Well, really, when you think about it, Mum, when we were teachers, I was in a position once where when I was teaching, the mother asked us to hide the child.
What did you do?
Well, I didn't know what to do, and I was 20 or something.
Yes.
So they put me and the child, the poor little guy, in a room, and just waited for the mother to come while the dad ran around outside. It was terrifying, and I don't think it's a really bad situation. But I think
you were scared. I
was
you were
scared. Yes.
Yeah.
So teachers are people. I think it's so. I think if you've got an issue that's really dangerous or really worrying, get to court, get court sorting it out.
Yep.
Leave the teachers out of it. I think
that's right.
Yeah.
I mean, but they have to know, and it just adds to their challenges. And things like Mother's Day and Father's Day can be a real challenge for kids if one parent perhaps is no longer on the scene at all or whatever. So, yes, just need to do it delicately.
And their actual teacher, if it's primary school or even high school, the pastoral carer or whoever looks after the year level, if you let them know we're going through a tricky time, such and such may act up, and so that they can understand a little bit more, be a bit more empathetic.
Yes.
If the child all of a sudden goes, it becomes different.
Or not say, and also don't say the wrong thing if you've got someone in your class going through that.
Yes. Okay. So what can you do and what can't you do?
Well, you can, as far as the school goes, it depends on what level of parental responsibility you have. So if there are no orders, then each parent has joint parental responsibility, which sounds confusing, but what it means is each one of you can do anything. Okay. So you can move them from class to class. You could take them out of one school and put them in another.
I guess you could think of it like a driver's license. You can only operate the machinery
at the level you've got.
So joint would be you both have to be in the – you don't both have to be in the car to drive it.
No, that's right. Any one of you can do everything in that vehicle.
And then what's the other one?
Equal shared parental responsibility.
Means you both have to be in the car to drive it.
That's right.
To make the decisions. Okay, and then sole you can be in the car
do
by
what
yourself.
You like, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So sole parental responsibility means the other person gets no say. Equal shared parental responsibility, which is the presumption in the court and which is the most frequent order made by the court, is one where you both you have to consult each other, and you can't just one of you do it on your own. You have to consult each other and try to come to agreement, go to mediation, try to come to agreement. All of these things that have to happen away from the school and away from the child, because you don't want to ruin their education.
So these kind of big issues are the ones that are around that responsibility. So the big issues are changing schools, choosing schools, repeating school.
Yeah.
So when you come to those kind of decisions, again, you have to figure out, are you joint, sole, or...
Yes. Do you have the power? In a joint, you have the power to do everything, but there may be consequences, particularly if it goes to court. And the court will be pretty critical of you if you've done things without trying to work together.
All right, well, let's talk about changing schools. So we did have a listener write in and said, I don't know what to do. Not that we can really provide advice to anybody, but they said, I don't know what to do.
Advice.
My ex has written to the schools and told them that they're leaving at the end of the term and has enrolled them in another school.
Oh,
so that's changing schools.
Yes.
So what's the rules, or what happens in that situation in court and things like that?
I mean, that's a very bad thing to do, really.
Hard for the children,
Hard for the kids, especially if they've gone through a breakup and now they're going to lose their... I don't know how often... I don't think you were a new kid at a school.
No.
Ever.
No.
But I was. I went to 7 different primary schools.
Holy moly.
And
did you get expelled a lot?
No, I did not. My mother moved a lot, and every time we didn't have a car, and every time we moved, I had to go to the closest school. And it is terrible being the new kid in the class, you know, and other groups have already formed their friendships, and particularly at the end of term. So, look, all of that. So, you know, if you go in midway through the year as a new kid, everyone, all the friendship groups have formed and you stand out, you feel terrible. But apart from that...
what happens in that situation?
Well, the court... You go to court,
I guess. So you have to go to court?
Well, you can try for mediation, but it doesn't sound like this person has, the other person has any intention of changing. So you go through your pre-action procedures, but if it's urgent, say if school's coming up soon, you may have to put an initiating application into the court or an urgent interim application into the court and tell the court why that new school is not suitable for you. It might be not suitable for the child, or it might be miles away from where you live and they mostly live with you. And I did have a disgraceful case once where both parents enrolled the children in different schools.
Oh, dear.
And they went to 2 different schools depending on
who they were with.
Is
that allowed in the court system?
Oh, the judge went ballistic.
I bet. I bet.
And the poor kid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what was the outcome of that?
Judge gave sole parental responsibility to one parent.
So in other words, one parent could now then just make all the decisions, and that regardless of whether it was like, it's because they didn't want the kids to be put through that situation.
That's right. It's a big ticket thing, and it's the welfare of the children. The court's aim is to have the children grow up to be the best that they possibly can be.
Despite a divorce.
Yes, that's right. And this messing around with the schooling, they also appointed a children's lawyer, an independent children's lawyer to look at it. And I think in the new system, this was years ago, but in the new regime, I think you'd find yourself pretty quickly being the subject of a child impact statement, so the children can explain how it feels to go to the different school on different days with different rules and homework.
So really all you're doing is highlighting to, if they do take you to the court that you're not thinking about the children.
They're not thinking about the children. And really someone had to let go in that situation. One of the people had to say, all right, they can go there until I can get to court and prove otherwise.
Gosh darn it, poor kiddos.
Yeah.
Okay, so changing schools is a big no-no unless you both agree, or unless you've got sole parental, or just you, I guess.
Yeah.
There's no other person.
No, the other parent's not involved.
Yeah.
And you do have an obligation, though, even if you've got sole parental responsibility, if the other parent is seeing the children, and often they collect them from school and drop them off at school, you've got an obligation to not make their time with the children, the other person's time with the children, impossible to achieve or impracticable.
Right.
So if you've got someone who's got the kids, say, from Tuesday to Thursday every second week and they pick and drop up from school, you can't go to another town and enrol the kids in another town
because that's not fair.
It's not practical unless it's very close by.
Right. So you've got to make sure that it's fair and it's good for the kids, but also that you're allowed to keep doing your times with.
Yes, that's right.
With. Okay.
And all of it boils down to the best interests of the kids.
However, I think sometimes in parents' minds it boils down to school fees or that kind of thing.
There's a good point.
So what's the school fee situation?
Okay, so when you change the type of school, like from a state school to a private school, then it really does become kind of like a child support issue.
Right.
Yep. And child support, by and large, won't enforce school fees against the parent who didn't want the private school unless you can show that that parent had planned for the kids to go to a private school before you separated.
Right.
Sometimes they've signed enrolment forms. Sometimes I've just seen letters or emails between the parties as they've chosen the school. Because the court's view is if it was good enough for the children to go to private school when you were together, then they should continue private school. Obviously, it's what they call it is the children being educated in a manner intended by the parties.
Yes.
And then the silent bit there is before they separate.
Yes. And the children shouldn't be changing just because someone doesn't want to pay school fees anymore.
And the kids will often, unless they're like real little ones, they'll know, if you put your name down at a high school or something, most kids know. And their friendship group or their cohort, a lot of them are going to these particular schools. So the court, it doesn't by and large get involved in saying one school's better than another.
So a court won't choose a school?
No, I've seen ones where people annex their reviews and their NAPLAN results and compare the two and all of that. And the court really says we're not in that business of choosing one school over another, private school over state, whatever. But yes, they're guided by what the intention was before, and they'll probably give parental responsibility for that issue
for school
to
choice.
one parent if they can't agree.
So some orders do have the children will attend XYZ school through consent orders perhaps or through mediation. Is that a good idea?
I don't usually do it. Unless it's been a real fraught problem. But I always worry that the school might close down, burn down or something.
Or you have to move to a different state.
Or they build a brand new school next door to your house or something.
Yeah.
So if I do put that in an order, it's for clarity for the children. But I do say, or such other schools as the parents might agree.
And that's general advice only because everyone's situation is different. If you've got a manipulative, controlling
or violence, you might have to get somewhere else.
You need to have a place locked in an order so there's no more fighting over it.
But it locks both of you in. That's the trouble.
True. So you definitely get advice about that before you name the school in any orders.
But it's funny because we always name pretty well where the pick up and drop off is if it's not happening at home. And it's generally, God bless them, it's the Golden Arches.
Thanks, Macca's.
In the playground, yes. But I think I told you about that case I read once where the Macca's had closed down and there was a Hungry Jack's, I think it was, over the road.
Yes.
And the parent wouldn't take the child over the road to the Hungry Jack's. And because there was no Macca's, they didn't provide any time.
Oh, that's great. That's a special kind of person.
I can't tell you how much the judge appeared to love that person.
Oh, I bet you they did not love that person at all. See, in the end, I think if you look at it in the long run, for people in this difficult schooling situation, maybe your ex is being difficult with the schools or change the school or threatening to change the school or doing sorts of crazy things like refusing to go to the other side because the other Macca's is closed down. But when you get back in front of a judge over those kind of issues, the comeuppance does come.
It does.
So I think those...
And the kids remember, you're wrecking their school years when they should be... That's their safe place, really. That home is a bit different. Mum might have moved, Dad might have moved.
Yeah.
So don't do that to your kids.
So choosing schools, changing schools. Yep. So if you're fighting over which school to go to for high school, try mediation.
Absolutely.
And try and get an agreement that way.
And you know what? At mediation, that's where you would produce the evidence you've got that your school's really the one you want is the best school for.
Yeah,
you might say, look, it's got a really good, I don't know, woodworking group, or it's got a better computer course, something like that, and see if you can't genuinely persuade. Or you might look at their evidence from the school and go, oh, I didn't know they had a special ASD unit, autistic spectrum disorder unit. Oh, yeah, okay, maybe your school is right. So, go with an open mind.
Okay.
Just don't take positions if you can, and mediation will work. But if you go to court, the judge isn't keen to just choose one or the other.
So they'll just choose a parent.
They'll choose a parent to have sole responsibility, and it might not be you.
Yeah.
So try and be a little bit open.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Then there's repeating a year level, which, I mean, it doesn't happen too often.
No.
But is that what if one parent's like, no, no, I don't agree to the repeat. Yeah. And the other parent is like, no, I do want them to repeat.
You've made it this far. You've separated or made the decision, and that's a big deal, and that takes courage, and we totally respect that. The problem now is you don't know what the next step is to do. You might have some idea, but you're worried it might be costly or you might make a mistake. We don't all have a lawyer on speed dial to ask those little questions swirling through our minds or to fully explain the process in plain speak. If this is you, you've come to the right place. This course was created because I wish I'd known what I do now. Lynn knows the law, and we both know what it is like getting divorced. It was during my divorce that she realised how much more support and information is needed for people going through this process. Knowledge is power. We're all capable of learning and doing things to help us to get to a better life. Mum and I want to give this knowledge and know-how to you and save you money while we're at it. Empower, educate and equip yourself with the legal know-how and the tools you need to get your divorce, property settlement and children's matters finally settled. Work through the course at your own pace without feeling confused, lost, scared or overwhelmed with family law legal jargon and processes. If you're ready, join us at www.thedivorcecourse.com.au and click on Find Out More about the DIY Divorce Blueprint.
Repeating at year level, which, I mean, it doesn't happen too often.
No.
But is that what if one parent's like, no, I don't agree to the repeat, and the other parent is like, no, I do want them to.
My experience is that topic doesn't come up unless someone from the school raises it.
Yes.
Because the normal expectation is a child will progress through the levels.
Yes.
So if there's a suggestion from the teacher or even in a casual conversation that maybe your child should repeat, I think ask the school to get a proper assessment and give you something in concrete.
Right.
If you then have a document that recommends repeating, then the child should repeat. If you did take the matter to mediation, that document's very strong to have in your corner. Mm-hmm. And if you have to go to court, the court will rely on the experts.
Yeah. Okay.
So they don't have any option. They'll just take the guidance of the expert.
Okay, the school says this, so that's what we're going to do.
Yes.
Yes. Hopefully you don't have to get there.
Well, it's also traumatic and expensive.
I know.
And the court is really keen on us
lengthy.
with this. Yes, and these pre-action procedures are important, but there's always going to be a lag.
I feel like sometimes, though, when it comes to these kind of issues, if they're people that are, they've kind of divorced, it's kind of amicable, but then it's about their children, so then it does become a passionate issue.
Oh, absolutely.
For some, or they're just everything's a fight. But I think a lot of people don't understand what the rules are, and so they think, do you know what I mean, that once they get in front of a judge that it'll be fine.
Oh, no.
So I think really there needs to be an education out there so that they know what the implications are of not agreeing on something, what the implications are of stopping it or changing schools. So, and then maybe that would stop people from doing it. Well, but people only find out when they end up in court.
Yes. I mean, I think it sometimes can be mistaken for a legal issue.
Yes.
When it's really a parenting, social welfare issue.
Yes.
And if you find yourself in constant conflict with your ex, maybe look at yourself as well. Don't just blame the other person. Maybe get some counselling. Is it me? Have I got triggers that make me react about this?
Yeah.
Did you in the past, we were talking about repeating, were you kept back a year and did you hate it and has that left a stigma on you? Or are you saying it because your ex was kept back a year and you want to sort of rub it in?
Yeah.
Just don't be that mum. Don't be that dad.
All right. So I guess another one, it's not really a big issue, but it is a topic that comes up a lot is extracurricular activities.
Yeah.
So it is mentioned in a lot of things.
Yeah, it is. It's relevant to child support.
Yes.
Relevant to time the kids spend and just generally their future.
So what happens if, say, your kids start school and they've always done choir, and choir happens to be on a Thursday or a Friday or a Monday or a Tuesday or whatever day you do your handover day, and choir rehearsal becomes part of the other person's handover routine? What happens then? Or they've got it in their time.
In their time. Well, you'd hope that the children can continue the things that they did after you've separated. But there are some people who say, not in my time, or they might legitimately say, I've only got her or him for a couple of days and I don't want to have it on that. And so in that case, you need to find a workaround, I think. It's certainly not something to go to court for.
Yes.
It would be if you happen to be in court for other things maybe, but how awful for the child if the parent is begrudgingly dragging them to choir, being upset, resist. Even if you don't say anything, kids know, when you're just.
But what
doing
if they're
it
going to be an opera singer when they grow up, and they need and just they miss out on going to choir because they are owing time to the other parent?
Yeah, no. What you do is work around it. There must be other choirs in your area. There must be other rehearsals. Find something in your time.
Yep.
Don't make everything a battle.
Or even have a chat with the teacher, see if they can change the rehearsal day.
Yes, or
if
get private
really,
lessons.
really keen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Something. There's always a way around.
Okay, so there is
Or they go every second week when they're in your care and they work, the teacher records the choir group on the other week and they can practice with it.
So there's no orders or rules or anything when it comes to extracurricular activities?
It does crop up in orders.
Yeah.
It crops up in orders where sometimes it's an order that each person will take them to their activities that they're currently doing and the court might list them, or the court might say no one's to book up any curricular activities that'll impact on the other person's time without their consent. Right. And that's just common sense.
Yes, yeah. It'd be pretty silly to do that.
And even if you've got, you don't have an obligation to consult with stuff, if it impacts on their time with the child, even if you've got sole parental responsibility, then you can't do it.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. So we've looked at changing schools, choosing schools, repeating extracurricular activities, what the school can do, what the school can't do. Basically, they're not a court, they're not a police officer.
No.
What you can do, you can just notify the school, keep them informed.
Yeah.
But let's look at our 5 tips.
Okay.
So we thought about things that maybe people don't know.
Yes.
And it would be good for them to know.
All right.
So number 1, Mum, is keeping the school up to date. So what do you mean by that?
We've talked about that. They don't need every gory detail.
Yes.
There's a precedent letter I've done in our course, but to let them know that there's something going on, it's separation and the child might be a bit tense and they may get different people checking in. Or it might say who's going to be the main contact person on what day, something like that. Yeah, keep them in the loop.
Contact details.
Yep. And when you get to final orders, even though the court can't enforce them, they do need to know the school can't.
The school can't.
Oh, I need a second coffee. It is a bit early in the morning, Laura.
It is 7 a.m, I know.
Yes. So even though the school can't enforce them, they need to know.
Okay. All right. So that's number 1, keep the school informed, but maybe not all the gory details because schools are a bit gossipy.
Well, they are, and that will stay on the child's record.
Yes.
So we don't, and what if it ended up subpoenaed in court?
Yes.
And you're slamming off on your ex-partner?
Well, that's one of the other tips.
Okay.
So number 3, so we'll jump to number 3.
Jump to number 3? Oh.
Now, tip number 3, schools can be subpoenaed. So what's your message to anyone listening today? What's that mean?
Don't say or write or do anything that you don't want ultimately to be known by the court and by the other side. Your children can use the student counsellor, but I'm afraid the student counsellors can be subpoenaed. Some student counsellors, I think, we should ask our daughter, my daughter, my other daughter, my favourite.
She's a psychologist.
My favourite daughter.
And was a school counsellor. She's going to be on here too.
I know, yes, but we should ask her. But I think sometimes the psychologists make very skinny notes if there's a likelihood of their documents being subpoenaed so that they can still talk frankly to the children. The children have got a safe place without it going back to the other parent potentially.
Okay, so tip number 3, because we skipped number 2, is subpoena.
What was number 2?
We'll get to number 2. Schools can be subpoenaed if you go to court, which means the other side can read whatever you've written ever, so don't be telling them
I honestly
everything.
think anyone you talk or write to in this process, just expect it to turn up somewhere.
Yeah.
And that's even on your
Even if you-
Instagram accounts, even if you're writing to a friend.
Well, even if you phone the school, they'll make a note.
They will. They will.
So you need to just behave with grace and dignity at all times,
Yes.
and give the information that's needed,
Yes.
and go and talk to a friend who's
Yes.
silent.
There's the poor people at the schools trying to navigate this, and they're just there for the kids.
Yeah. Okay, so keep the school up to date with orders. Number 2, we kind of did cover anyway, was heads up if there's any events happening, or if, there's separation issues that may be causing problems with behaviour.
Sometimes if the kids are going to see a family report writer, they may act up a little bit afterwards because some of the questions can be very unsettling. Sometimes, in spite of a person's best efforts, the kids know that there's mediation coming up or that there's a court date coming up, and it's very hard for them to go to school and behave as if nothing's going on. Also, too, on those days when you do have mediation or maybe court, a different person might be collecting the children that afternoon.
Yep.
So make sure you've told told the school that. But, I like to give the kids a bit of a heads up because I do know one kid who spent the whole day in detention.
So giving the school a heads up
that the judge was going to decide where he was going to live that day.
Oh, gosh, yeah. And I guess people, they're so focused on their case, or people are so focused on going to court, and that whole situation is really scary. That vibe can rub off on the children, whether you like it or not, because you're not skipping in the kitchen wearing your active wear going to gym,
that's right.
So the kids pick up on stuff. So definitely notify the school, give them a heads up, the teacher particularly, hey, little Johnny might be a bit off today because there's something going on. You don't even have to tell them what.
If you're walking out the door in good clothes and you don't normally work,
yes.
I mean, the kids are on to it.
Yeah. Okay, number 4. Okay, so when it comes to school, you're both allowed to attend events. So let's talk about that topic.
Yes, unless you're barred from it, you're both allowed to attend the events. And that's good for the kids.
Yes.
If you've got a child doing
of course,
performance, they look
there.
up, they can see both parents.
Yeah.
You don't have to sit next to the other person.
But you both have to suffer through award nights.
However bad it is.
Very long ceremonies at school.
Yeah.
So you both are entitled to attend.
Yes.
I know some families that I see, like we went to an end of year thing the other day, and the families I knew were separated were sitting together.
Yes.
I knew at least 3 at that time that were sitting together, and that was lovely because the kids just zone in, look, they can see everyone.
Yes.
Even I knew one group didn't really particularly like each other.
No, but I mean, it gives the child a nice feeling to see all the people they love in one place.
But don't feel bad if that's not you, if you can't do it. Maybe there has been violence,
be careful.
Domestic violence, any of those issues, or whether you're really just worried you're going to somehow accidentally end up back with them because it's manipulative and controlling. So if you have to sit separately.
Or that it might
it's
end
not
up
the end
in
of the
an
world.
affidavit.
There's probably a million other kids with parents that are sitting separately
Honestly,
as well.
the days where a separated family was the exception are long gone.
Yes. So, Mum, you did say that if anyone was worried about being at the same event, you had some strategies. And that was something like staggering.
Yeah, stagger your arrival times. Make sure you stay with the crowd. Mm-hmm. Yeah, don't go, especially with school events. There's nothing eerier than a school after dark.
I know.
They light up the hall, don't they?
Yeah, but they don't light anything else.
They don't light anything else.
I guess they don't have any lights.
No,
they don't need them.
It's weird.
It is a little
because
creepy.
I think it's because the teachers will get there in daylight and then they don't think. But anyway, so it's always a bit fraught or getting back to your car. Take a friend with you if you like.
Mm-hmm.
They're rarely ticketed.
They were during COVID. A lot of stuff was
true.
ticketed. They limited it to 2 people only. And then you're like, no.
But now you can bring your grandma or your mum, grandma, dad, granddad, a friend.
Yeah.
Yeah. And by and large, people will behave themselves in a public place.
If there is domestic violence, does the school know about that?
Yes.
Yes. So
but they can't do anything either.
No. So they're just aware of it.
Well, they sometimes will stagger like the parent-teachers things. Mm-hmm. They can factor that in, give it on different days.
Yeah.
It just gives them a warning to be extra clear with everybody.
Yeah.
And also uniform pickups and stuff like that can be staggered. Mm-hmm. I feel sorry for them, really, at the school.
The schools have got a lot going on.
Yes, and their whole focus.
But so does anybody who has DV.
Yeah. You're right.
Yeah.
Well, the children have probably been through DV.
They're probably
then.
even worse.
Yeah,
Yes.
so their whole focus really should be on the children and creating that safe environment for the children. And they can't do that unless they know.
Yeah.
So give them the DV order.
Okay, and number 5, sharing information, photos, report cards. That's a biggie in a lot of court orders.
Well, yes, there's a lot of old court orders we used to do which put the onus on one parent so that, that the father will provide the mother with copies of all report cards and any, newsletters, et cetera, And then we got a bit smarter and then we said orders like this order authorises the school, because we can't make an order about the school because they're not parties to the marriage. The court can only make an order on mum or dad. But it's an authority for the school to provide the other parent with this information. And we did it with medical as well. This is authority for them to do. But even that was a bit on the clunky side. And now they've got, with all of these apps and everything, they just say that one parent or another should, if you've made an appointment and you're co-parenting, that you put that appointment in the app. So there's about 3 or 4 different apps. And sometimes you can set up an email address that you both access. That's really handy. The court appreciates that. I mean, the days when you had a physical newsletter.
Or a physical report card.
You don't even get them now.
No, no. But maybe NAPLAN still is physical for some reason, because I guess that's Queensland government. But report cards mainly are online.
Oh, that's great.
So it all just gets emailed. So if you can definitely considering taking the onus off one parent, and it always
mustn't
is, even when you're together, there's always one parent that's in charge of reading the newsletter and sorting it all out. Yeah. If you have separated and that onus always was on you, the best thing you can do is get one of those parenting apps like Our Children or Our Family Wizard. It has a joint email address that the school just sends all the report cards, all the newsletters, all the information, all the emails from the teachers to that email address. And then the program emails it separately to your normal email address. So you don't have to log in to that email.
Bifurcates it.
You just get it in your normal email.
That's
the
really
beauty
good.
of that is all the things about the children, whether it's medical or school, it all goes in there. So it's collated. So it's kind of like a filing system.
Yes, and if
nobody else has.
Oh, there you go. And if the other side says you didn't send it to them, you've got
the
proof. Yep.
Yes. So it takes the onus off you of having to go, oh, did I send that report card? Oh, did I send this? Did I send that?
The serious consequence of that onus on you, if the order says that the mother or the father, one of you, has to do it for the other, there are so many opportunities for you to miss something and then be in breach or in contravention of the orders. And if you've got a litigious person, like someone who loves to take you to court, takes you to court over it,
you're being in trouble.
You will be in trouble because there's an order. So don't agree to orders like that.
Yeah.
Set up a system and that you're not responsible then.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Don't make the responsibility yours.
No, or the other person's.
Yeah.
And I'm really happy to hear, not putting your brother in it or anything, but I do remember one year there was a newsletter I missed. And I had to fish it out the bottom of his bag. It was covered around Easter holidays.
Oh, gross.
An old egg.
We don't. Newsletters are all online now.
And, that's good for the photos as well, because school photos were another issue for sharing.
School photos, unfortunately, not yet online.
No, but
you can
the link. Yes, you can link. Even that when I was teaching, you could do that. So, that's the worrying thing.
Yeah, but
so.
When it comes to sharing information, I think it also means if the teacher emails you and not the other party, you should say, hey, just letting you know, the teacher said little Johnny's having trouble at school. That kind of thing?
Yes.
Yeah?
Yes, I think so. I think you could probably, if the teacher's only emailed one of you, maybe
ask
there's a reason to do it to
true.
both and ask their permission to put it to the other party.
Yeah.
And if not, just let the other side know that such and such says that he's playing it. What can we do to support him?
But to stop you from getting in trouble if you go to court, only getting emails from a teacher and the others not, definitely give the school a joint email.
In fact, only give them the joint email.
Or say, this is my email, this is their email.
Yes.
But you must email both of us.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's good.
But that's general advice only, because if you've got DV or if there's other situations going on, please go see a lawyer. So anybody, all of this is general advice. It's just mum pouring her brain out. But every situation is so different.
I know, but we're just chatting over coffee here at an ungodly hour of the morning, Laura.
So today, Mum, we've talked about, what schools can do, which is pretty much nothing apart from teach a kid, what they can't do, which is a lot. They just really are the brunt of it, really. I feel sorry for them. What you can do and what you can't do, the big issues about changing schools, choosing schools, repeating, extracurricular activities. And then our 5 tips are, number 1, keep the schools up to date. Number 2, give the teachers any heads up if there's an event that may cause behavioural issues. Number 3, the school can be subpoenaed, so careful what you write. Yep. Number 4, you're both allowed to attend events unless otherwise said so.
So do it safely.
So do it safely or do it together. All the best to you if you can. And number 5 is sharing information. Make sure that you've got a joint email address. And if not, if they send you something that should be shared, you share it.
Yes. Yeah. With their permission. I think that's good, Laura.
Wow. And everyone is going, Auntie Chrissy, thank you for that.
Auntie Chrissy will be pleased.
And we're going back, everybody's going back to school
soon.
Very soon. So hopefully everybody who's listening, all our listeners, if you've got kids going to school or starting school,
exciting.
Or starting high school.
I know.
There's some exciting stuff going on in our family this year and all our nephews and nieces and everybody.
And we haven't even touched on uniforms, Laura.
I know.
Or books or costs. Oh, dear. But that's really a child support-y issue.
Yeah.
And a practicality issue.
If you've got questions about uniforms or books, check out the child support episode we did at the end of last year called All the Questions You Don't Want to Ask.
Yes.
And in that we discuss about who pays for uniforms and what about books. So check that out because that is another whole issue in itself.
And who keeps them at their place. And,
yes. And if anybody out there is going through any hard times right now.
Hugs.
We're hugs for you guys. If you are writing in, that's great. But please know, I'm not a lawyer, and Mum doesn't monitor the emails. I flick some to Mum, but we don't have. Mum actually still is doing law like for actual clients, and there's so many emails that we can't keep up at the moment. So I'm going to create an auto response, but please do write in if you have questions because we do sit down and go through them before we do an episode. Yes.
And it guides us sometimes.
And it guides us.
Yes.
So definitely keep sending in your questions, and hopefully we can get back to those who've emailed us. But at the moment we are a little bit flooded.
We are a little bit flooded.
But you can come along to our webinar.
Yes.
Which is coming up at the end of the year and the beginning of February, end of the year, end of this month and early February. So jump on the website, go to www.thedivorcecourse.com.au, click on the webinar button and then book in.
Choose your session. So one I think is the 31st of January.
Yes. And the other one maybe 4th of February. I can't remember.
Something like that afterwards,
So yes, but the great part about the webinar is you can sit in there and listen to us talk and guide, but then you can ask Mum questions.
Yes.
It's the one chance you can get to grab her. And if any of our members are listening, we always do our live Q&A afterwards, so we will email all our members that link so you can come along to our members question where you just fire your questions away at Mum because you're our beautiful members.
I love it. Actually, it reminds me like of a nerd's version of The Chaser or
where you have to answer the question.
Answer the question. I feel like I've got to, I know the answer to that. Press the button.
Poor Mum, puts her on her toes. Because when I ask her questions on the podcast, we can pause it till she, digs it out of her memory, which isn't very often we have to do that. But when we're doing the live Q&A, sometimes Mum has to think fast. It'll keep you young, Mum.
It keeps me young. Well, and also, too, I don't know what people are going to say.
I know. It keeps you on your toes.
Yes, but at least it's general advice
It's general advice only. All right. Stay tuned, everyone, for the next episode and take care. Bye.
Bye.
If you found this podcast helpful, we'd love it if you could rate, review and subscribe. By doing so, you are spreading the word to help someone else just like you. Lynn would like to remind you that this podcast is general advice only and you should always get legal advice in relation to your particular situation. And remember that the Australian laws may have changed since recording.